welcome everybody to the final episode of our second season of a Script to Story podcast series. And today we're talking to Francesca La Morgia from Mother Tongues, and it's an ideal way to finish this series, this season, because we have spoken to translators from beginning to end, and now we get the whole culmination of what it is to live and to breathe in a society where your mother tongue may be different to the language that's being spoken, and so on and so forth. You're very welcome, Francesca.
Thank you, Marguerite.
Tell us a little bit about mother tongues. Why was it needed? Why did you create mother tongues?
The main motivation really came from my academic interest. I was doing research on bilingualism and working with children and parents, visiting them at home, and suddenly realized that parents had been given a lot of misinformation. They've been told not to speak their language to their children, to stick to English only, especially if they had some concerns. Of course, this wasn't always the case, but I felt that for a lot of parents, raising bilingual children, if they've never done it before, if it's not their own experience, it's quite a novelty, and they want a lot of information. And sometimes the information they were getting was either conflicting, or sometimes it was negative. So they'd been told maybe stick to English at the start and then introduce Spanish when your child is 6, or don't teach the children to write in another language because it will confuse them, and so on and so forth. So I felt that there was this need to share evidence-based information, but also for parents to find a place where they could meet other members of their community of speakers and practice the language. You get the children to enjoy the language in real life. Sometimes in our homes, and I can speak for myself, I'm the only Italian speaker, and it's quite difficult for me to be the only one who's pushing for it. And so to know that there's somewhere out there in Ireland where someone will help me to find other Italian speakers, and we can do storytelling together, or we can just gather and have a coffee and the children can meet, it's very, very important to me. So that's really the outset, like how it all started.
And I think in some ways there's a cultural element to that as well, that if I was an Italian woman and I was living in Galway, and I would like my children to be able to experience, because I don't know if I had a child, would the child want to speak my language, because Mammy isn't that cool. Let's be frank about this. Mammy isn't cool at all. But if you see other mammies in a group and they're speaking Italian, and all of a sudden you look over and then there's a child your age speaking Italian, and all of a sudden you need to brush up on your Italian because you're going to join in this group and you're going to be good at this, So I can see the importance of that, the community. I know that the experience I have of bilingualism is different in that in Ireland, especially we're in Galway, so Connemara Irish. So you'd have a whole family that speak Irish all day long. And then they send their children to maybe a Gael school and an Irish language school, or an English language school in order to learn English. But when the children, what I experienced when I was in primary school, the children would come in. When we were in the older classes, we were to mind the little ones, the junior infants. And when they came in, they didn't have any English. It was only Irish. So that's a situation where all the families speaking Irish, and you send them to an English school to learn the English. It's very different to what you're talking about, where you're one person speaking Italian in a family speaking English. So I can only imagine that is powerful, to place that child or those children that you have into an atmosphere, into a community with more Italian children and more Italian speaking mammies and daddies. Because then,
and to us, it's quite important also, I feel, to not only necessarily see people who speak only your language, but just to see that bilingualism is normal.
Yeah.
To see that, yes, okay, I speak Italian at home, my best friend speaks Polish at home,
Mm.
And so this is an experience that connects children, even if they're not members of the same community of speakers. It's something that they can, they can share. And that's why I feel schools are very important in spreading the message that speaking two languages or more, and Irish is very much part of this picture. It's something that everyone should value: the families, the children, society, the education system, because it does give children an advantage to know more than one language, no matter what that language might be.
I think
and yeah,
that is the truth. It does give a person an advantage, because on our Tribes Press team we have a number of people who speak Spanish, Italian, French, German, Chinese, Russian, Estonian, and English, and so many languages, Irish language. We have such a mix of languages within our team that it brings such richness. And I think that's a really important thing. It opens the world to other possibilities for that child that becomes an adult and then wants to journey wherever they want to journey. So it is a fantastic thing to have. It's a powerful thing to have. I think language is a powerful tool. And being a writer myself, I will always say language is a powerful tool, but it is when you see different people speaking different languages and all sitting around a table together. It's a wonderful experience for us as a Tribes Press team. So we have an education system that hasn't really placed a huge emphasis on the oral exam until now, until recently, until this. I think the new oral exam for the Leaving Cert is 50% oral and 50% written, which is a huge shift. So we want people to speak the language more. Now, I know from going into a lot of schools that you can go into schools and the teachers may not be proficient in Irish, even though they may not, when I say proficient, they may not be fluent in Irish, even though they're speaking. The writing is perfect. The students excel in their written language, but not in the oral language. And is there a place then that if I am a student or just a person in general and I want to learn more about a language, but I don't want to be sitting in the class all day long, I actually want to experience it. Does Mother Tongue say, okay, we have a meeting in Cork, or we have a meeting in Galway, or we have a meeting in Dublin, and it's Italian tonight and something like that, Spanish on Saturday morning or something like that? Is there some access point there for people who just want to immerse in a culture in a fun way and speak the language rather than it being, in a classroom?
We have classes, language classes, at the moment in Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Polish. We started to now look at Arabic and French as well. And they're for primary, not beyond primary yet. We started all this in the middle of all this really tricky situation, or just before. So we found ourselves not only in a space where we're trying to find solutions to make languages fun and enjoyable and give children a sense that they're going to a club. They're not going to language school. Yeah. They're going to do some art and maybe science experiments in Spanish rather than just going to learn the alphabet in Spanish.
Yeah. And I think
these classes,
it's important to have fun while you're learning the language. Yeah. To immerse yourself completely in it. Yeah.
And to not feel again that you're going to yet another class after school, but to feel that you're meeting your friends.
Yeah.
And so it happens that day the immersion is in Spanish.
Yeah.
And we were really excited about all this. We found a school that was hosting the classes in Dublin, and obviously we were looking at asking various people where else could they be taking place, because we know there in Cork, you were mentioning, there's a large population of Spanish speakers or Italian speakers. The same applies to Galway, of course, and any urban centre in Ireland would be multilingual. At the moment, our classes are online. And so we have teachers who are trying to replicate the same fun environment. So they're doing experiments via Zoom. They're doing carnival celebrations and dressing up, and everybody dresses up and sings songs. So it's still quite sociable. It's still fun. But virtually, you get access to more people, which is lovely. But I wish we could have this big house where we could all gather, all languages, all people of different ages, and just enjoy multilingualism, really.
Yeah, and it is fun because I know it from my own team. It is fun because I've been taught such terrible swear words from my French colleagues. They teach me how to swear before they teach me how to speak properly in French. And it can be absolutely hilarious fun because then somebody jump in and they say something in Italian that, and someone in German, and you all of a sudden you're starting to learn a language you never knew because they're speaking it. And it is great fun, and it'd be lovely to have that for children that they can just, and we'll have it soon again with the help of God. We'll be back doing fun things together, and it sounds like the likes of a carnival where you have multilingualism and people are enjoying themselves, and we can laugh at our mistakes when we're trying to learn a language, which is really important for us to laugh and enjoy our mistakes as well, because in school settings you're often kind of being crucified for making a mistake, you know. It's nice that children can have fun, and it's great that it's coming into primary schools, because children at that age, they just soak up a language and they've no inhibitions, so they just do what everybody else is doing, and it's fun. So I'm delighted to hear that they're going into primary schools. Good.
And once a year, we run the Mother Tongues Festival, which is very much what we're describing. It's a place, a physical space where everybody comes in and they enjoy languages through the arts. So again, I was speaking to one of the parents who attended last year, and he said it was the first time his child, who was very young, was in a room full of people he didn't know, who all spoke Chinese, and they weren't learning. They weren't his own group of friends. They were just doing some craft, but it felt really natural. It felt very much like there was a community that was gathering.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do at the festival, just gathering people from all sorts of language backgrounds and do things together that involve really getting stuck into art or getting stuck into some craft or to music, and enjoy being together across cultures and languages.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful thing. What would you say for parents now who are, I speak, let me think. Okay, if we have a situation where my partner is French, I'm Irish, I don't know, I want the child to learn French, and I could speak Irish to the child all day long, but then what do I do when I go to school? So I want the child to have Irish language as well, to be fluent in it. So do I say to my partner, you speak French, I'll speak English, and we send the child to an all Irish primary school? Or do I speak Irish, he speaks French, and we send the child to an English school? What do we do? Like, I've met people in this situation that I don't know what to do here. So what do you do?
So we have one parent is an Irish speaker.
One parent
and what is
European language, we say French.
Yeah, and one is a good fluent Irish speaker, but also is able to speak English.
Yeah.
And you're wondering what. So my first question is for you. I always ask a question back, for your idealized scenario, which is, what would you like to achieve? Because usually in Ireland, English doesn't tend to be a problem for children. English is a language that children will end up speaking to one another no matter what. They'll hear movies, television, everything will be in English. Even if they're trying to access, the older they get, they will look at video games, and everything they go for the internet will be in English. So there's very little doubt that English will fly.
Okay.
There could be doubt that French and Irish could suffer. So of course, if you have the opportunity to send a child to immersion education through Irish, is a great opportunity. And you could also, on top of that, speak Irish at home. because
Yeah.
you really don't need that little bit of extra English at home. You don't need to fabricate an English environment yourself.
I remember when I was in university and we were doing the psychology of language, and our professor of psychology said to us that you must speak only the language, only one language. Like I must speak, if I want the child to be fluent in Irish, I must speak only Irish. We say if my partner is Italian or French or Spanish, he must speak only Italian, whatever the language is, the European language that I'm thinking of is. So whatever the language, he must only speak that language. So the child is fluent in French, fluent in Irish, and then will be fluent in English. But that you can't mix them, because the child will not be fluent in either, will not be perfect in either language, because they were never given, you know what I mean? English words will come into the other language, and they won't be able to construct the sentences properly. What's your experience of that?
It's not really correct or true in a sense. Like switching is not problematic in itself.
Yeah.
What is difficult? Children hear switching every day. If you're in Catalonia and people speak Spanish and Catalan, everybody switches, and no one finds any problem with that, and everybody becomes fluent in Catalan and in Spanish with not a bother. Same applies to Irish speakers. Irish speakers who are immersed in Irish in school, in society, in the Gaeltacht, for example, they switch to English all the time, and they don't have issues with one language or the other. The question is, again, if in this ideal family, one parent only speaks French, so Irish is in the school, so there's quite a lot of input in Irish, and there's some level of socializing through Irish. So there's good amount of information that the child has to develop the language. You can still switch to English and the child will have strong Irish. What happens to French? In this family, maybe there are 2 hours a week dedicated to French, maybe 6. It will vary so dramatically from family to family. So the problem is not the switch in itself, but the problem is if this child hears French for 20 minutes a day, those 20 minutes is better if they're French only, because it's the only child's chance to get a lot of French exposure.
French, yeah.
And so if you switch, it's not that the child doesn't know how to construct a sentence in French, but the child in that limited time won't have enough evidence to learn French. So the idea of switching from a language to the other, my son this morning told me a sentence that started in English and finished in Italian. And he's well capable of doing both. He can say a full correct English sentence and a full correct Italian sentence, and we mix them. So it's not, the mixing is not a sign of a problem or a confusion, or we shouldn't mix as adults because we are damaging the children. But what's really important for any bilingual, multilingual context is really that children have enough opportunities to hear a language in an immersion sort of context. So in my home, that means bedtime stories. It means that maybe all the time I have in my day tonight is 8 o'clock, but from 8 o'clock to 8:30, my children only hear Italian and only hear me reading to them in Italian. And if they ask me a question, what does that mean? I explain it in Italian. And if they don't understand, I explain it further in Italian. And that's because I want to create this environment where they're immersed in Italian, because that's the only opportunity I have. And that's why I don't switch to English. Okay. It's because in that limited time, I need to give them as much Italian as I can.
Well, that's fantastic. That's really important for us to hear. And the reason I spoke about French, because I know there's a very strong French community in Galway. And I've experienced like a number of I've experienced I've read into the French community, children, that is, in the children's bookshop Charlie Burns in Galway, and they all come together on Saturday morning, and the families come together, and sometimes there's a bigger number than there is other times because of sports and different things like that. But there's a real effort among the French community to bring the children in for story time and communicate through French. So it's a wonderful experience for the children, and it's also a way of the parents kind of getting the chance to speak their own language as well, you know, because that can be tough when you can't even speak your own language. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've one of the people who works here has been in Ireland for 10 years, 11 years, and she's German. And when a German person comes to into the office at any opportunity she has to speak German, she just wants to speak it because she hasn't spoken it in so long. She only gets to speak it when she talks to her parents on the phone, or her sister or brother on the phone in Germany. So it can be very tough. So it's great for all of the generations to have an opportunity to come together and speak the mother tongue.
Yeah. And the adults are also the ones who start to lose a language after a while, because if you've been abroad and never really got to use your mother tongue for a long time, you start to forget, or to become a little bit more, that word is coming to me in English, but it's not coming to me in Italian. And it's through the children and through the community that you regain the confidence as well.
Yeah. Well, what would you say now to people in Ireland who have a child that is about to enter primary school and they want the child to be multilingualism, to be multilingual, and they want to get in touch with mother tongues and say, okay, my child is in Dublin or Cork or Limerick or Belfast or Galway or wherever on the island of Ireland, and I wonder how do I do this? How can I help my child to have to be immersed in another language? What information can they glean from mother tongues? What can mother tongues do for them if they?
So in practical terms, straight away, parents can visit our website and find a wealth of information to help them in the home. So help them with their own strategy with their child.
Yeah.
But we also have a link to community. And what we mean by community at the moment is an online community. And by registering for this online community, anyone, anywhere in Ireland can find people who speak their language, who have children the same age. So by entering the information, saying, I'm Francesca, I live in Dublin, I have a 5-year-old, and I speak Italian, I can find other Italian speakers who live in Dublin who've got 5-year-olds. And the same applies to Galway, to Cork, and to anywhere in the country. And the idea right now is that we're doing virtual meetups. And so parents are doing storytelling, they're doing sometimes coffee, just coffee to come together, but it's all via Zoom or online. But the view is that hopefully in the near future, this will turn into gatherings of people who will go for coffee, will go to the playground together, and they know where to go, because through the app, you can message people, you can really independently, without our involvement, you can just register for the app and get to know people.
That's great information. So it's mothertongues.ie, yeah? Is the website, and they can get in touch with you and find out all that information and rear a multilingual children. Thank you very much, Francesca, for taking the time out of your day to talk to us.
Thank you so much.
We look forward to talking to you again someday, maybe in another language, and maybe I'll have some Italian at that stage. But thanks very much for being here, and we'll talk to you another time. Goodbye, Francesca.